I have lived by, I keep my eyes on the prize. I know what my purpose is. I know why I'm doing this job. I do not take things personally. And I understand that there are people that are very invested in me failing. And all that does is motivate me because I'm not going to allow that to happen, because that would get me off my mission here.
Hello, it is your partner, Big Boy, Big Boy's Neighborhood, and today we're going off air with Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass in my all-new leadership series. Why am I starting this series, Big? Why are you being political? You know why? Because I love Los Angeles. I grew up here. LA is home for me. And just like many of you, I care about this city. I care about where we're headed, what's working, and what's clearly not. We see the homelessness. We see the cost of living. We feel the changes in the vibe and the energy of this city. And a lot of us are wondering the same thing. Who's going to step up with real answers? Who's actually going to make a difference? That's why I'm talking to leaders, decision makers, and anybody who says that, you know what, they want to make Los Angeles better. I want to hear directly from them. No filters, no podiums, just real conversations. Because this is a city that deserves better. Today's off-air leadership series is with Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. So let's sit down with the woman currently holding the office of Mayor of Los Angeles, and let's talk about what's happening now and what her plans are if she's reelected. This is Big Boy's off-air leadership series, and this is our conversation with Mayor Karen Bass. All righty, Big Boy, we are off air. Mayor Karen Bass, it is a pleasure to see you.
It is a pleasure to see you, and I'm honored that you're here.
Man, and thank you for inviting us to your neighborhood.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
This is beautiful. I was just talking to you briefly before we had a chance to sit down. And I'm Los Angeles. This is home plate for me. There's an extreme love for the city of Los Angeles, right? And I was just telling you, like, with us, my mom, 7 kids, single parent, and I'm the second to the youngest, right? I'm baby brother. And I was thinking as I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm sitting with the mayor of Los Angeles. No matter how many accolades I get, I still have these moments that's like kind of unbelievable for me. And being Ida's son and having a chance to sit down with the mayor and tackle some real issues and have a great conversation. First off, this is wild for me, so thank you for inviting us down.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that, but it's wild for me too, because I've listened to you for years and years.
Oh, you stopped that.
And I have. And the first time I met you in person was pretty recently.
Yeah.
And so I'm so pleased that you're here, and it's an honor to sit with you.
It's wild that our paths haven't crossed as
It
much.
is.
We've been doing
That's
a lot
true.
of work for Los Angeles,
Right?
You know, but it's time for us to sit down and have this conversation.
That's true.
Now, in Los Angeles, I'm the voice of Los Angeles. People put that on me. I don't say I'm the voice of Los Angeles. People put the voice of Los Angeles.
That's
So
right.
to actually sit down and have a conversation with you, it's not about me. It's about the people that can't have the opportunity to sit down with you. And the position that you're in, there's a lot of scrutiny that comes with this position. There's a lot of praise, but there's a lot of scrutiny.
Oh, yes.
And my first question to you is why would you want to be mayor of Los Angeles?
Well, let me just tell you, Big Boy, I'm born and raised in LA, and I'm the daughter. I had 3 brothers. My father was a letter carrier. My mom was at home and did babysitting. And so for me to be in a position where I could help my city, something I would have never imagined in a million years. And unfortunately, my parents didn't live to see me take office. But from a young child, I was always interested in politics, not necessarily politician politics, but community politics. And so for me, my life has come full circle to be here. But the reason I ran, the reason I wanted to do this was because I was very worried about the humanitarian crisis on our streets and the disproportionate impact on Black and brown people. So Black folk in Los Angeles are only 9% of the population. We're 30% of the people on the street. Latinos are just about 50% of LA, and 40% of the people on the street are Latinos. So 74%. And I don't want to see my people on the street. And I was going to do whatever it took. So I loved being in Congress. I was happy there. But I was compelled to leave to take the risk of running, possibly not winning. But if it was going to give me the opportunity to deal with these streets, that's what I wanted to do. And there's 9 million other issues as well. But this particular issue, I was actually working on more than 30 years ago in South Central LA, back when homelessness was only South Central and Skid Row, and nobody around the city really cared much about it. And the things we were trying to do in the early 90s that everybody laughed at us for is commonplace now. You know all those motels we have in South Central? And you know what's going on in those motels?
Oh, yeah.
So I figured if we could get people off the street to be in the motels, we could reduce crime and help people at the same time. So that was my commitment then, but I didn't have the power or the influence to really do that.
This takes us right to what's going on in Los Angeles now. Even coming here, you see it right outside.
Right.
Our homeless population it feels extremely high.
It is.
And I know that we're working on it, but when you look, I couldn't imagine my kids now having to walk to school. I've never had a ride to school. I walk to school every day.
Me too. Walk or rode my bike.
And so now the sidewalks, sometimes you don't have a clear path to the sidewalks. What do we do about the homeless situation that's going on right now?
Sure.
I mean, it appears that it's bigger than ever. If we're talking about 30 years ago and we were trying to work on a problem then, it seemed like the problem now has gotten greater.
By leaps and bounds. And just think about it this way. There's an entire generation that has grown up that has seen this, that thinks this is normal.
Right.
You know, in the early 80s, the demographic of a homeless person was a 55-year-old white man who was an alcoholic on Skid Row. That's who was on Skid Row. This didn't start changing until the mid-'80s, and frankly, it was crack cocaine. And it was a lot of laws that were passed. But the people on our streets are the results of a number of very bad policies. And so what I did is that on day one, I declared a state of emergency, and I just started moving right away to get people off the street. And it's very rewarding because you know what? It's a myth that people don't want to leave the street. We don't have problems getting people. We don't have problems getting.
There's help that's there.
No. Well, there's help that's there. That's true. But whether or not the individual actually is connected to that help. But the way we approach the work, we started this program called Inside Safe. And a lot of our outreach workers that do this work were formerly unhoused, formerly incarcerated, have had their own issues. Some people were trafficked, former foster youth. So they live the life. And they go out and they talk to people in the big encampments. And what we do is, because I think a lot of people don't realize, those encampments are communities. So what the city had been doing for years is just plucking one person out at a time, which is why the public never saw a difference. What we do is we take the whole encampment. We take all 30 people and put them in a motel. And then we make sure that new people don't come back. And we've been successful at that. We've removed over 110 encampments. Now, we are talking about a population of 46,000. So it takes, a lot, and we have not been able to eliminate a problem that took 40 years to develop in 3 years. But we've made headway, and I see a very clear pathway. But one thing that might surprise you is the fact that there's a number of policies that literally put people on the street. And if you don't mind, I'd like to explain a few. Foster youth, that's probably the most easiest one to understand. When you're a foster youth and you turn 18 or 21, we literally put you on the street. We know who you are, we know your phone number, but our policies don't support the young people. Or put it this way, it supports too few of them. So they wind up unhoused. And you know what happens to the girls? The girls are on Figueroa. And the girls are on Figueroa even before they hit 18 or 21, and I refer to them as girls because the average girl that's on Figueroa, when she was recruited, she was 12 years old. But another policy are veterans. So if you're a veteran and you take your disability, we count it as your income, and we won't give you a housing voucher because we say you make too much money. So because I was fortunate to serve in Congress, I knew how to get the policy changed. Took me a year and a half. I chair the national conference, well, the National Ad Hoc Committee on Homelessness for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So I gathered 50 mayors together. We went to the House, we went to the Senate, we went to the White House. I spent a year and a half. I got them to change the regulation. Do you know that we had 3,000 vouchers in the city of LA that were just sitting unused because of this policy?
Do you feel like people feel it's not moving fast enough?
Well, it's not moving fast enough for me.
For you, yeah.
No. I mean, when you have 46,000, it is going to take a while. But if you live near an area where your kids couldn't walk down the street, if you had a business that people couldn't go to the business, if you had a problem where homeless people were starting fires, you noticed the difference because that encampment is gone and new people did not come back. And so, but it's still not enough. We need to be able to do it in a much bigger way, and we need to find more cost-effective ways of housing people. To me, because I have felt it was an emergency, we rushed to do it, but in the course of doing it, we've discovered obstacles, things that need to change, better ways of doing things, and this is a system that is a bureaucratic mess, nightmare.
I was going to ask, who gets in the way?
Oh, God, well.
Because people can look at Los Angeles, and the name we know is Mayor Karen Bass. So there's probably some things that people would say it's you, as opposed to the people you still probably got to go to and get sign-offs and yes.
Well, I will tell you, the biggest obstacle I'm facing now, and I wasn't expecting this one, I didn't realize that there was a philosophical and ideological difference. So there are people that actually believe that it's okay for people to be on the street and wait until there's a permanent house for them, and that they shouldn't go to a shelter and they shouldn't go to a motel, and all we need to do is speed up the building of housing. My belief is anybody that feels that way, ask them where they slept last night. They didn't sleep in a tent. They slept in a bed. And they're telling somebody on the street what they should do. We have found that the people on the street do not want to be there.
From the encampment to the motel, what happens after?
Yeah.
Because is it more of a kind of like a 3-card Monte thing where things are just kind of getting moved around?
No, no, what happens, and this is a big weakness in the system as far as I'm concerned. What we do in the city is we will house somebody, but we have contracts with community-based organizations to take care of the people once they're housed, to provide meals, to provide security, and to provide whatever services they need. And you can understand that if your life has fallen apart to the point where you're living on the street, you're not going to be okay if I just pluck you up out of a tent that you've been in 5 years and put you in an apartment and think you're going to be able to be okay and figure everything out. You got to heal. A lot happened to you on those streets. A lot happened before you were on the streets that needs to be resolved. Everybody oversimplifies it and says, well, it's drug abuse or mental health. Right. But you know what I say to that? A lot of the drug abuse and mental health starts after being on the street, because you will have people who are on the street, and to protect themselves, they want to stay awake all night, so they start using meth. And then I challenge anybody, sleep on the street in a tent for a couple of weeks and tell me your mental health is the same as it was when you were housed. So when somebody's life disintegrates to that point, when we put them in a motel, they need an array of services. They don't have that right now.
Oh, okay.
They do not have that right now. The community-based organizations, and this is no negative reflection on them, they don't have the resources to provide the type of services that are needed. So while I'm trying to dissect and diagnose what's wrong with this broken system and fix it, I'm also getting people housed and doing all of that repair work, changing policy, changing this bureaucratic obstacle all at the same time. And so in 3 years, we've made headway. We've reduced street homelessness 2 years in a row. It's the first time there's been a reduction. We have a lot more to do. We need to come up with a cost-effective method. We need to come up with the type of services that people need. And in another life, Big Boy, I've had a lot of lives.
Mm-hmm.
So
same. Don't Google it though.
Yeah, right.
Don't ask nobody.
Yeah, same here. One of my lives was working in the medical field. So I worked at Big County Hospital. I worked in the emergency room. I worked in the trauma unit. I worked in healthcare for a number of years. And so a lot of people need basic healthcare, diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and all of that needs to be attended to. So I'm also having to create a new model at the same time, a model that's more focused on health for the individuals when they get out of off the street. I hired a physician to put together the homeless strategy to diagnose and fix what is wrong in the system. But what I didn't want to do, I didn't want to come into office and spend 3 years studying the issue and diagnosing it. No. I wanted to come in and get people off the streets right away. And within my first week, we started getting people off the street. Do you know that the fastest growing sector of unhoused people are senior citizens in their 60s and 70s? And just think about it for a minute. You worked in the hospitality industry all your life. No pension, no 401k, probably not Social Security. If you don't have the family to take you in, you're on the street. And guess who the majority of the folks are? Black women. That's who's out there, the fastest growing population. So what the general public needs to understand is that there's different categories of people that are unhoused for different reasons.
Yeah, because we were.
Yeah.
That's why it's so close and so dear to me, because we had bouts of homelessness. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't about my mother being, on drugs, it was just life.
Right.
You get behind on bills.
Right.
You get this slippery slope.
Right.
We ended up in motels and admissions and everything. So when I see certain things, I have a different feeling.
Right.
When
Me
I
too.
roll through the streets of Los Angeles and when I see it, and even when we think about the great things that you're trying to do and LA is trying to do for our population, you also get into a position where developers don't have the same dream as you.
Right.
And money has been, it seems, either misused. Speak to me on those millions of dollars.
Sure. Well, first of all, there is a case that's working its way through the court now of just outright fraud. And so it's not shocking that there would be some of that. And if you look at the history of the city, a lot of the corruption that has happened has revolved around developers. Now, this case is not necessarily a case of city council members or anything. This is an outside developer who was arrested and is being prosecuted. But I think what you've heard in the news more than that is you've heard money that is difficult to track, is difficult to quantify. For example, I've heard wildly different numbers of how much we spend to house somebody. And the numbers 9 times out of 10 are not accurate. But you also have situations where people are billing for stuff that you can't really tell. For instance, when I thought about services, I immediately applied what I thought services were. And then I found out that services amount to 3 meals a day, security, and maybe a connection to a social worker. To me, services need to be much more than that. And by the way, when we place people in motels, what are they doing all day? There's no programming for them. So while I'm trying to diagnose and fix this system, I'm also developing a new model of a system. All of that is happening at the same time. And if I had unlimited dollars, there's no way there would be street homelessness. But I have to tell you something else that might be surprising to you. There were decisions that were made in this city that resulted in street homelessness. New York City has 80,000 unhoused people. 97% of them are in shelters or some form of housing. They're not on the street. This was a decision that this region made to prioritize rigidly and dogmatically permanent housing, and we did not invest time or money into interim housing. And what I mean by that is that when you come off the street, we shouldn't be on the streets. People should be somewhere. And when you come off the street, I don't know that you're automatically ready to be in a permanent house. Now, some people are, because some people have been out there a short period of time. Some people, it was just straight economics. Right. They haven't deteriorated in other ways. But the point is that there's no cookie cutter approach. But our city and our county did use a cookie cutter approach until very recently. And one of the problems I have is that there's forces now who are fighting against what I'm doing in terms of getting people off the street. They don't want the money used that way. They want the money just used for permanent housing. But I think it is unacceptable. It is inhumane. And people die on these streets. 4 or 5 of them didn't wake up this morning. So at the same time I'm trying to do all of this, and I'm dealing with a massive number of people. But like I mentioned to you before, for me, this is my life's work. Right. I mean, I feel like my life has come full circle, because I mentioned to you in 1990, I had a cush job. I was on the faculty at USC Medical School. I was teaching medical students and PA students, physician assistant students, and the crack cocaine crisis hit. To me, that was a health issue. We had the Crips and the Bloods. That year we had 1,000 homicides. So I walked away from that job, and I would have been long retired if I'd stayed there. But I walked away from that job, and I started an organization on 85th and Broadway, which was the epicenter of the problem. Because for me, people who were suffering from a health problem, and then I viewed the kids involved in gangs, addressed the root reason. Kids don't want to be in gangs. Kids go in gangs for a variety of reasons. And it's not difficult to keep them out at all. And so I started an organization to do that. We didn't use the phrase mass incarceration in 1990, but I knew that was what was happening because I was watching politicians just pass bill. Every politician wanted to have their bill where they showed they were tough on crime. And they didn't think about the consequences. And they wanted to lock up kids. And all of that I thought was horrible. And so I left that job to start an organization and to try to figure out solutions. And hopefully maybe we could get into some of the work we did then, because I'm doing it still now. And then I was working on foster care related issues. And I've come full circle. So the people that we were trying to get in motels in 1993, actually it was after the civil unrest, where people were laughing at us. Then COVID hits and everybody goes, ooh, we have motels. So I feel like I've come full circle in my life, and I'm actually able to get things done on a hands-on basis. It's like when I was in Congress, you don't get the instant gratification of seeing your work. I was very involved in fighting to send LA millions of dollars around COVID that was targeted to communities of color. But I don't get the satisfaction of going out with the outreach workers, talking to people in tents and telling them, you deserve more than this. You shouldn't have to live like this. And to have people cry and say, am I gonna be able to shower where you're taking me? And I just sit there, you know? Or seeing people, because I do still have my medical brain, and seeing people who I know shouldn't go to the motel, they needed to go to the emergency room, and taking them there. And being there as the mayor with a homeless person in the emergency room, you know they're gonna get taken care of in a different kind of way, versus if they were just there. And when I worked at county in the emergency room, I used to take care of homeless people all the time. That was a core part of our population.
And sitting with you, I know you care, but there's so many people that don't have a chance to have this dialogue with you.
I know, that's why I appreciate you doing this. Or
also, Mary Karen Bass said, won't look for it. So it's easy to say, with the millions of dollars that was magically put around, or homelessness, crime, it's easy for people to say, this is on your watch, and this is your fault. Is that a broad stroke to you?
Well, I think culturally, Americans, all of us, are pretty ahistorical. We live in the present, we don't connect the past. And so this problem started in the 1980s. And I've been in this chair for 3 years. So it is true. I have not solved a problem, a 40-year-old problem. And so as long as I'm in this seat, and I understand, and I understood when I ran for this, that anything that happens, I mean, people get mad at me for the weather.
Right.
Or people also get mad at me.
I was mad at you a couple of days ago when it was raining. When Camp Flognaw, when that got rained out, I was like, "You damn Karen Bass." Man, I know she's controlling the weather.
People get mad at me for stuff in other cities. This one guy yelled at me for not speeding up the building permits in Pasadena. And I was like, well,
Like, I don't,
I'm not the mayor of Pasadena. But I don't take these things personally.
Speeding up the building permits.
Yes.
What's going on in Los Angeles right now? Because I've had a chance to speak with Rick Caruso, and I had a chance to speak with Austin Butner, who's now running for mayor as well, he announced. And separately, without them looking at each other's interview, because we hadn't released them, both of them said, "Have you been downtown?" And both of them brought up, "There's no cranes." And they both said, "There's no cranes." And I was like, oh, well, I know where this is going.
I think they're looking at each other's social media. Right.
Oh, that must be it too. But nothing's being built in Los Angeles. What's happening with LA just on that side where we're seeing, LA is fruitful.
Yes.
It's home plate.
Yes.
But we are seeing things where either we're seeing an exodus, some. We're seeing, of course, jobs disappear. And we're being priced out of our communities right now. And there's also nothing being built. What do you feel is the pulse of LA now? So,
just to unpack that, there are plenty of things being built. Tons of housing is being built. Downtown is particularly suffering. But, if you look at the overall economics of what is happening in our country, first of all, work fundamentally changed after COVID. One of the things that has really hit downtown hard is remote work. So you don't have the workforce that was down here patronizing the restaurants and keeping businesses alive. Work fundamentally changed.
I literally was speaking with someone, and they just got back in the office last week.
Jeez, after all these years?
After the pandemic, we're starting, starting to see, but as you were saying, there's a lot of people that's working from home as well.
Well, it caused offices and companies to reduce their footprint in terms of buildings, right? Because people aren't here, so the occupancy rate has gone up in terms of buildings. In terms of construction, though, the cost of materials has skyrocketed. That has also contributed. The uncertainty, now this is just this year, the uncertainty from what is happening in Washington, D.C. We don't know 1 minute if we're going to have tariffs. We don't know if we're going to go to war. We don't know what's happening. We don't know what's happened in the last half hour.
Tell me about it. I'm afraid by the time we finish this interview, I'll turn my phone back on. Like what's happening with the United States.
And so all of that has impacted the market. And both of those gentlemen who are businessmen know this full well. They know there is
Speaking
not
of Rick
one.
Caruso and
Absolutely. There's not one issue here. There's a broader market forces that are impacting the entire country. And we have a lot of work to do, and I'm very committed to getting it done. But there are greater forces. At the end of the day, I'm the mayor, and the buck stops with me for just about everything, including the weather.
But you're ready for that? And always
Absolutely.
been?
Yeah. Again.
I'm strong, but I couldn't do it.
Again, I have lived by, I keep my eyes on the prize. I know what my purpose is. I know why I'm doing this job. I do not take things personally. And I understand that there are people that are very invested in me failing. And all that does is motivate me. Because I'm not going to allow that to happen, because that would get me off my mission here. But I decided at a very young age that I wanted to devote my life to fighting for social and economic justice. And that has been the throughput. No matter what I've done, whether it was working in a hospital, whether it was being in the community, running an organization, whether it was running for office. When I decided to run for office, it was because I had spent 14 years building my organization. I was very committed to training the next generation of leaders. And that leader, by the way, ironically, is now here. And he's the president of our city council, Marquise Harris Dawson. So when I left, I passed the baton to him as the executive director. And so once I had achieved my goal, then I figured I could go do something different on the same issues. So I ran for office. I went up to Sacramento. I focused on criminal justice reform, repairing the foster care system, working on the environment, all the same issues. When I went to Washington, D.C., it was the same thing. I focused on criminal justice reform, foster care reform. What I added when I was in Congress was foreign affairs. I've always been interested in foreign policy. So back in the day, I was leading one of the anti-apartheid organizations and worked in the whole Free Nelson Mandela movement. And so when I got to Congress, I wanted to focus on Africa. And so I was the lead Democrat in the House of Representatives on African policy, but my focus on Africa was on trade and business. It wasn't on the humanitarian. People would assume I was working on humanitarian. I wasn't, because I knew if the economics were stronger, you didn't need the humanitarian.
When we look at Los Angeles, Los Angeles is a beautiful city, but people feel like it's kind of losing that shine. What we know about Los Angeles. I mean, the Dodgers won. This is a beautiful place, but people are starting to feel and have been feeling that Los Angeles is just different. I've had conversations with people that left Los Angeles because of crime, left Los Angeles because they can't afford it. So what do we tell those that don't believe in politicians or believe in the mayor or the governor or a senator? Because we've heard this before.
Yeah, but you know what, though? I think that's another part of our American culture. Obviously, people in office are important, but there's no way in the world it should be viewed as the mayor, the governor, Congress is going to take care of everything. It's all of our responsibilities. So what I've always done, especially starting off as a community organizer, community activist, it's always been about community for me and getting people involved. And so one of the things that we're doing to contribute to that, civic spirit is we've started this program called Shine LA. So the last Saturday of every month, we organize projects, beautification projects all around the city, whether it might be planting trees or picking up trash or painting utility boxes or painting murals, but creating that sense of civic responsibility because the world is coming here in 8 months. Actually, before, well, I don't know about the world. February, we have the All-Star basketball game. May, we have the U.S. Open for golf for women. June, we have the World Cup. 8 games are played here, but the World Cup lasts 40 days. 2027, we have the Super Bowl. 2028, we have the Olympics and the Paralympics. So we have so much coming up, incredible opportunities. My thing is that I want it to be opportunities for all. So our motto is games for all, and creating the sense that we had in Paris, which is probably 5% of Parisians actually went to the Olympics.
Right.
But when you got in Paris, the Olympics was everywhere. I want you to land at LAX, get a QR code, find out what's going on in South Central, Pico Union, East LA, the East San Fernando Valley. I want you to know and go to those areas. I don't want you to come to LA and only go to the tourist places.
Are we ready for the Olympics?
Yeah, we will be ready. Okay. Oh yeah.
Because
I'm
I've
very
asked that
confident.
question.
Yeah.
And both times it was like, no, we're not ready.
But you know what though? I was around in '84. It was a long time ago, but I was around.
Yeah, same.
All the same issues. Well, you remember then, everybody thought, oh my God, people left town because they said the traffic is going to be terrible and it's awful. We were coming out of a deep recession. The San Fernando Valley didn't want anything to do with the Olympics. The city council went to ballot because they were upset about the Olympics. 41 years later, our city is still benefiting from the 1984 Olympics. It funds youth sports in the inner city areas. So all of those trepidations 41 years ago are being expressed today. Actually, not as bad as they were 41
What's the
years
lead
ago.
in? Because when we talk about the lead in for the Olympics, we're talking about the unhoused. Where do the unhoused go? Traffic, crime. You know, of course we got venues and everything like that. But what's the lead up? Because I remember in '84 also, literally, Mayor Karen Bass, I remember that people that I knew were getting locked up.
Yeah.
You know, they were
I
getting
heard that.
they were getting locked up off the streets just so we could have these Olympics, and some people I know wouldn't be out on the streets. So what's the lead up for the Olympics?
Well, you know, to me, we absolutely have to deal with the homeless issue in a major way. And so the lead up to me is what we're doing now that really needs to be scaled up. So understanding where the system is broken now, repairing the things that need to be fixed, but then scaling up in a very big way. Because
where does that money come from?
Well, actually that was the meeting I was just in.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't in that meeting. Yeah, where does that come from?
It comes from multiple sources, but we are looking at independent money in LA, and we've taxed ourselves a couple of times, and so we do have money coming in now for homelessness. We need to build our parks. So a lot of it is that we actually wind up taxing ourselves. I mean, the reason we have public transportation is because of that. I mean, granted, we've got some money from the government, but as unstable as the state and federal government is, if you don't have your own independent funding streams, then, you know, it's going to be tough. Here's my fear. I don't want Trump to come in and just round everybody up. That happened in Paris. It wasn't the mayor, it was the president who rounded folks up. And it was interesting because a lot of their unhoused population were African migrants.
Right.
They put them on buses and dumped them in the middle of the country. We're not going to do that here because we're going to solve the problem. But we do have to scale up, and we have to scale up in a much more cost-effective way. We can't scale up with motels.
Right.
We have to, but what has happened though over the years is that there's new and improved shelter models. So my goal is to be like New York and Boston, where they have a homeless population, but the overwhelming majority of them are housed. Now, the other thing that I believe in, which is very controversial, and it's because of my medical background, there are some people on the street who are too sick. They don't even know they're homeless. They don't know they're naked. You know what I'm talking about. There are people who are so profoundly mentally ill that they need to be hospitalized whether they agree to it or not. And that's a controversial position, but until we get there, what we do in our society, and I think it's so hypocritical, people will say, well, you can't do that. That's infringing on their civil rights. But those same people are not picketing the jail because where do you think those people go? They go to jail. They're picked up continually because, as a society, we allow them to deteriorate to the point where they either hurt themselves or hurt somebody else. It doesn't have to be that way. We could prevent that.
Back to the Olympics. Are the Olympics good for Angelenos? Or is it good for the people that's visiting and the world watching Los Angeles? Like, what do we benefit from the Olympics?
And see, we benefit in the billions. My goal, though, is I want to make sure we benefit.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
because, so what we've been doing is we've been working with businesses years in advance to get them ready, because that's what often happens to our businesses. We find out about the RFP usually after it's expired. We had no role in what's in the RFP. And so we've been working with businesses. We've held 2 business summits. We've had over 1,000 people in each summit, because when the contracts are ready, we have a network of people now. We can let them know way in advance. We can do technical assistance workshops. So we want the Games for All to benefit all of Los Angeles. That's why I was mentioning the specific neighborhoods. For example, on the World Cup, and we're good, it's good that we have all these events happening before, because it gives us a dress rehearsal. So the first dress rehearsal will be the World Cup. And in those 8 games and 40 days, we're going to have activities all over the city. Major watch parties, fan festivals, soccer games for kids, soccer clinics. We're going to have that going on. I want to do the same with the U.S. Open for golf for women. Girls all around the city playing golf, so that you have a sense of that. But the small businesses in Watts and in South LA and East LA and Pico Union, all of those should be able to benefit by that.
Yeah, we've been seeing small businesses disappear. But I mean, the numbers are horrifying. And the world is different, but Los Angeles, like I said, is different. People aren't coming out as much. We're seeing, even when it comes to immigration, we're starting to see people now that,
won't leave their homes.
Yeah, they will not leave their homes.
Right.
What do you feel about our immigration, not just in the States, but what it feels like in Los Angeles? When they announced that, I remember telling my team that I work with, I said, it's gonna come down to license, registration, proof of, citizenship. It's worse than what I thought.
Well, it reminds me of South Africa during apartheid, when black people had to carry a pass. And if you didn't have your pass, you could get arrested. Or the South, with the black codes after the period of enslavement ended. It's the same kind of situation here, are fugitive slave hunters, So you have people, masked men, not necessarily in uniform, or it looks like they got their uniform off of Amazon, driving up in unmarked cars, snatching people off the street. It has had a devastating economic impact for families and for neighborhoods. It is very expensive to live here. And in a household, you might need 2 or 3 paychecks in order to survive.
Definitely.
If one of those paychecks disappears, the family could be completely destabilized. And it might lead to a whole new sector of homeless people. It could. So working with our community organizations, and we're so fortunate in LA that we have these organizations that have been around for 4 or 5 decades. So they're very sophisticated, very organized, and they're able to be the bridge with like City Hall and the people that are immediately impacted. We work very closely together. We've raised philanthropic dollars. We've handed out cards, like debit cards to people. We're in touch with folks that have been impacted. We've joined lawsuits where we've gotten good, court decisions. Of course, when it goes up to the Supreme Court, that's Trump's court. Right. It gets overturned. But what I thought was really good, and I was so proud of my city, because we stood together. We didn't turn on each other. Everybody was appalled by what happened. Everybody was. You could imagine in some cities, you could have people going, oh yeah we need get rid of those people. They're taking our jobs. You didn't see that. I mean, I'm sure there's individuals that felt that way, but they had the good sense to stay inside.
But what do you tell, as we're sitting down now, what do you tell those communities in Los Angeles?
Well, the main thing, first of all, I make sure I go there, I'm visible there, I make sure that they know that I'm fighting for them.
Do they know that?
Yeah, they do. They do. I get the feedback all the time. I walk down the street, I go into different settings, and people come up and talk to me about it all the time and thank me for standing up for them.
Does it seem like a lot, like we're being villainized when it comes to the administration and what California feels like and what LA
feels? He calls me by name.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But remember now, the minute he took over, the first attack was against diversity, equity, and inclusion, AKA black folk. Because he summarily fired some of the highest ranking African Americans, the Secretary of Defense, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the head librarian for the Congressional Library of Congress, just went down the list. And then calls me by name and says that I've done all sorts of things. The last time he called me out, he said that I was responsible for holding up the water in the Pacific Northwest. I don't think he knows the Pacific Northwest is Washington and Oregon. And I don't know what that has to do with Los Angeles. But essentially what has happened with the assault on diversity is calling anybody of color incompetent and unable to do their jobs. And if you look at the cities that he's gone after and the mayors that he's targeted, with the exception of Portland, we all have something in common.
How's that fight when you fight in that administration?
Well, again, it's helpful. I served there for 12 years, so I understand the kabuki theater.
Right.
So even though I might say the things I say, I can also pick up the phone and talk to people in the administration. And remember, some of my former colleagues are his secretaries. Christy Nome, I used to see her every morning in the gym. So his secretary for the veterans, Doug Collins, very conservative guy from Georgia. We worked on criminal justice reform together. And so as soon as he was sworn in, he came to LA, and I told him what I told you about the veterans, and I wanted to make sure they would carry over the policy, and they have. So some of what you see all of this back and forth, but there's another level of it.
I want to take you now to the top of the year, 2025, January. We saw devastation with the fires. And people were saying that the fires could have been prevented, especially Pasadena could have been prevented. What do you feel about the fires and when we think about, reservoirs and...
Well, let me just tell you, the whole month of January was devastating, just devastating. Long after January, but while the fires were actually burning, it was devastating. I was personally devastated. The time my city needed me, I wasn't here. Obviously, if I knew the city was in danger, I wouldn't have gone to Long Beach. What is coming out now, more and more and more, finding out, what went on, just re-traumatizes people. But what you had in the Palisades and Altadena and Malibu was massive grief. I mean, it's not just that you lost your house. You lost your relationships, you lost your history, you lost your sense of belonging, you lost your community. Your kids might have lost their school or their playground. It's devastating.
And I want to directly ask you this, as far as your understanding, what actually happened with the Lackman fire? When we felt like officials, as far as when you have skilled firemen that say we shouldn't leave this because it's still smoldering, there's a possibility that this could reignite, and then you have the top dogs say no, and you get pulled off.
And I will tell you, that's brand new information. Right. That was shocking information. So the report that we did that is required of the fire department is to do an after-action report. But that was for the January, not the Lackman fire. So the after-action report hasn't been done on that. I think you and I are learning at the same time as these firefighters have come forward to say things that I certainly was not aware of. As far as I knew, the Lackman fire was a small fire that was put out quickly. And that was kind of the end of it. No idea that they didn't check, that they didn't use the technology that they had at their disposal. It was not a question of resources. Resources just weren't used. But there's a lot more that needs to be investigated about that. But that's information that came to light recently, actually, when the arrest was made. That was the first time it was known. A lot of people, especially in the Palisades, suspected because there were people there who saw the smoke and took pictures and video of it. So a lot of people believed there was a relationship, but there hadn't been anything that documented it until the ATF and the U.S. attorney came out and made the arrest of the guy that started the fire. Then people connected the dots. Then after that, firefighters started coming forward. So a lot of what is going on now is new information. So I have ordered, first of all, I hired a new fire chief, and I ordered him to do an independent investigation. and we will do that. Now, he is probably on day 5 of his job, so it's going to take a minute. He has to hire a firm and all of that, but we will get to the bottom of it.
So this was pretty much shocking to you as it was to...
Shocking is an understatement.
So where does that blame, but and I know it's another due process, but what happens? Because not just when we think about the territorial loss, the homes that were lost, like lives as well. So where does this go to that you could speak on for as much as you know? What happens with something like this?
Well, that does remain to be seen. I don't know right now, but the investigation will tell us why certain decisions were made. Again, at the end of the day, I'm the mayor, okay?
Right.
But I'm not a firefighter. And frankly, I had been through many weather emergencies before January. And the and the fire department, there was no issue. They did an excellent job. I don't know if you remember, a couple of years ago, we thought we were going to have a hurricane. And in the middle of that, we had an earthquake, so they call it the hurricane. We had several weather emergencies. So I do think this was a combination of many, many factors. We know that one of the factors was this was a weather event that we had never experienced before with hurricane level winds. We did have a reservoir that was emptied, that was ordered emptied by the state. But what people don't realize is that had that reservoir been full, it wouldn't have helped with the fires because that was a reservoir for drinking water. Planes could not have, it would have had a cement cover that sealed it to protect it. There were other reservoirs that did have water that firefighters had access to, but the winds were too strong. So they were able to be up in the air for a very short period of time. They needed to have been up in the air a lot longer, but they couldn't fly.
The ounce of prevention and a pound of cure didn't work here.
Well,
because our prevention, and the reason why I say that, Mayor Karen Bass, is because when we had fire trucks that were inoperable, or they just weren't out.
Well, we had both.
Right.
We had fire trucks that were broken, but we also had fire trucks with empty seats because the firefighters were sent home, and they shouldn't have been. A shift was sent home, which was hundreds of firefighters were sent home. So you had both going on. Now, in hindsight, it's not difficult to say that because of the Lackman fire, they should have pre-deployed in the Palisades, and they did not do that. Now, we knew that, and that was one of the factors that, there was obviously a conflict between the fire chief and myself in terms of how she handled the fire. And the lack of pre-deployment was one of the issues. So I think it was just, and then if you read the reports, and it's not just the city, the county as well. The people in Altadena didn't get notified that the fire. Right. So this was
until it was at their doors.
Right. This was an event that overwhelmed both systems, the city and the county.
But you're the mayor.
Right, of the city.
Of the city. So someone that's sitting back watching this, or we've had months of thinking this, it's like, how much of this is you're not knowing? And how much of this is if people are pointing fingers? Because that's easy to do. What's the misconception? Well, for you?
Again, I think that I am mayor. The buck stops with me.
Right.
I'm not a firefighter. I think that the sad part for me is watching people exploit the grieving families by assigning things to me that make no sense. But I understand, especially in the Palisades, people who are grieving, and I'm very familiar with the grieving process. Part of it is anger, and people need somewhere to direct that energy to, and that energy gets directed to me. at different points in time. Obviously, it was very intense at the beginning of the year. It's different now. It's very different now. Now that people have an understanding of the complexity of what happened. But I don't take that personally, like we were talking earlier. I think, me anticipating everything that could have happened, that's why you have a police chief. That's why you have a fire chief. If I had any concerns about the fire department or the fire chief, that's one thing, but I had no concerns. I had been through a number of emergencies with them.
What would we change for the next fire season?
Oh,
and is that
so
a question
many
for
things.
you, or is that a question for?
Well, it is absolutely a question for the new fire chief, but again, we work together just like I did with the last one until the fires. But pre-deployment, and so everything that has happened since then, we've gone overboard because number one, we know that people are emotionally vulnerable, and they want to see that red fire engine there, even if we think maybe it's not needed. We're going to go the extra mile. You know what I mean? Now, the brush clearance. And some of that is challenging because it's not all under city authority. Some of the brush is under state authority. But I don't care. I'm going to clear the brush. If the state has not taken responsibility to do it, then we're going to do it. So that pound of prevention, not ounce,
Right.
Pound of prevention. Is something that I believe in very strongly, and we are doing. Now, the other thing that's most important is that the loss that people have experienced, the best thing that I can do is get them back in their houses ASAP. And so one of the things we did is that we made sure that water and power that we control was back on at record speed. Now, when I say that things are going fast, I am comparing it to other fires that took place in California and other places. And what we did in 2 months in other fires like the Camp Fire or the Woolsey Fire, what we did in 2 months took 8 months or longer. Now, the Trump administration, and this was a controversial thing for a Democrat to do, I was very complimentary of the Trump administration. Because one of the reasons why things have gone so fast in terms of the rebuilding is because the administration poured resources on us in the form of an extreme deployment of Army Corps of Engineers. Apparently, it was the largest deployment that they had ever done. And so they were able to get the lots cleared in, I think it was 8 months. That can take more than a year. So to date, we have issued over 1,100 building permits for about 600 properties, because one property can have multiple permits. There's more than 300 homes that are currently under construction now.
Do you feel like the community is going to lose the community? And by that, I mean, who's rebuilding? Who's buying?
So I think a few things.
And I think you also do you get blamed for cities that's not even, that you're not the mayor of?
Pasadena, Altadena, Malibu, you name it.
Yeah.
And Malibu personally, my brother lived in Malibu for 35 years, used to evacuate routinely. Not this time, didn't make it. So he lived, but lost everything. So while I'm going through it personally, I'm also going through it as mayor. But so who's buying, who's staying?
Right.
The people who are rebuilding, to the best of my knowledge, they're Palisadians, okay? Those 1,100 permits for the, over 500 homes, 600 homes. But there are a lot of people who are not sure what they're doing. For insurance is probably the number one factor. Insurance, and then the other factor is just finances. So what people don't realize about the Palisades is that not everybody is extremely wealthy. You have a lot of people in the Palisades, just like a lot of communities, that bought their homes 60 years ago when it was affordable. They're living on a fixed income, and they're stuck. They're in their 80s or 90s. And some of those people might not rebuild. My brother, for example, chose not to rebuild. So those people might not rebuild, but what's going to happen with their property, I don't know. They are selling I don't know who's buying. But like I said before, and I want to go back to this because I think one of the things that has been very disheartening to me is the deliberate misinformation that some people are putting out. Outright lies. No permits are being built. The Chinese are buying all the property. And it adds to people's grief. What I did immediately issued a number of executive directives to expedite the rebuilding. And some of it, by the way, was practice that we learned over homelessness, because when I declared a state of emergency around homelessness, it allowed me to use extra authority to expedite things, to get rid of the red tape. So some of those lessons that we learned from homelessness, we're applying to the Palisades. There's other things that we're doing in the Palisades that if they work, we're going to apply citywide.
What's right with Los Angeles now?
What is right with this? You know, again, like I said before, we've gone through these tragedies and we have stood together strong. You know, during the fires, after the fires, oh my God, the outpouring of everybody all around the world. But Angelenos, being there for Angelenos.
Right, we've seen it.
Then we have the attacks from the federal government. We got invaded by our own government. I mean, think about that for a minute. And everybody stood strong and helped each other. The excitement around what is ahead for us, the Dodgers.
Right.
And I say the Dodgers because, you know, that celebration of 200,000 people down the street, that kind of energy and excitement, that's what I want to see from the city.
The entertainment industry.
Yeah.
I've been in entertainment professionally. This is year 31 for me in Los Angeles. But we've seen Hollywood change.
Yeah.
We've seen, you know, Hollywood go to Georgia. We've seen Hollywood go international. How do we bring back entertainment to Los Angeles, to Hollywood?
It's an issue that is really important to me for some personal reasons. Actually, my family is third generation in the industry. My grandmother in 1932 worked on the Sony lot. For what it was, at the time. And both of my brothers are involved in the ancillary businesses connected to the entertainment industry. But I made a commitment when I was very first running for office that if I was elected, I was going to fight for the tax credits in Sacramento.
Right.
And before I was elected, I was on a board of an organization called Workplace Hollywood. And the focus of that organization was to diversify the below-the-line crafts. And so we started programs to get young people in, because that was a job that used to go from father to son, and the sons didn't want it anymore, and so they wanted to diversify. So when I got up to Sacramento, I was elected in my third term as Speaker of the House with Arnold. Arnold was governor. And he said, if you're able to get tax credits in the budget, I'll sign it, but I'm not going to do it because it'll look too self-serving.
Right.
So sometimes with elected officials, what happens in the middle of the night in those rooms, sometimes they're good things. So we were able to slip the first tax credits in the budget bill, and that was in 08, 09. And so I've always supported that and advocated for the increase. Now, during those years, we were worried about losing filming to Toronto. Nobody even talks about Toronto anymore. Now it's New York and Georgia and overseas. Right. But after we got the tax, so my thinking at the time was, if we just get a small tax credit in, over time it'll grow. Because it was also the Great Recession. Right. So it wasn't like the state had any money. And so we got it in and it did grow, but it didn't grow fast enough. And all the other states outpaced us. So the big tax credit that the governor signed this year was $700 million. So I was involved in advocating for that, but that wasn't enough. I said, what can we do in LA, separate from the state, separate from the feds? So I worked with the industry and signed an executive directive. The industry asked for certain things, and now we are doing them. So for example, they wanted to make it easier to film in LA. It's expensive. So the permits that you have to have, we've expedited, but also we've decreased the number of staff that are needed. Because when you have city staff at the locations, you're paying for it. So we decreased the number. And then we also did specific promotionals around the iconic filming location. City Hall is an iconic filming location. Griffith Park Observatory. So we did that. And the other thing the industry wanted was they wanted a concierge service. So we now have 2 dedicated staff members who basically will do whatever hand-holding is needed to expedite things. So when the tax credits were being signed, I think there were about 14 TV productions that came back to LA. But the other thing about it, though, is that just like you talked about downtown and businesses and all, there are structural things that are happening economically. AI, for example. I mean, the industry, just like the workforce changed with remote work, the industry is changing, and those are economic factors that a city or a state cannot control. Those are internal factors to the industry. But that's going to be your fault, too. I know, but I'm okay with it.
Crime in Los Angeles.
Yes. So
what do we do with, there's this gap that we see, okay, crime is going down.
Significantly.
But
60-year low.
Do we see that?
So, you know what? Crime is, the way I describe it, that is a statistic, okay? But if you live on a block or in a neighborhood or know somebody, you got a crime emergency. You don't care what the statistics are. And it was similar kind of to the fires. You know, I am proud that we've been expediting things, but people still are not in their homes.
Right.
So it's the same with crime. I can sit up here and talk about how we've reduced crime, but people have to feel safe in order to be safe.
We don't feel it.
You do in some areas, and some areas you do not. If you live in an area where you don't. But back to that organization I started in 1990, one of the big things I was trying to develop were strategies to prevent crime. And so we perfected those strategies over 35 years. They've been studied and tested and replicated. And so one of the things that I was excited about coming here to do was to really institutionalize it. So I started a Office of Community Safety that focuses, of course I have the traditional Office of Public Safety, which is about law enforcement, and I'm pushing to make sure we hire more officers and all of that. But I'm also as invested in preventing crime, and especially in our communities and what happens, you know, in our communities. We've learned a lot. So we fund a number of community-based organizations. A number of the people, just like the folks that do the homeless work, might have been involved, and they might be formerly incarcerated people who now are very remorseful about the community they hurt and now have devoted their life to helping. So what we do specifically is, if there is a gang-involved shooting, then obviously the police go. But the crime prevention team, which is called GRID, Gang Reduction Violence Prevention team, goes. And they're called violence interrupters. They go to the scene of the shooting to prevent a retaliation. And that way we have been able to reduce gang homicides significantly. Or since they were close to the ground, they know of disputes that are happening, and we intervene in those disputes and bring about peace. The other thing is that if you look at law enforcement and firefighters, the majority of what they do is not necessarily, I mean, they're fighting, well, the firefighters, the majority of what they do, 80%, they go on medical calls, not fires. And the majority of their fires, unfortunately, are related to homelessness. But law enforcement, a lot of what they do is dealing with people with social issues, mental health issues or other issues. So we have unarmed response. We have a program called Circle, where if you call up 911, you talk to the operator, and if it's a issue that is involving a person that is mentally ill, we don't send out law enforcement, we send out a community-based program. So it's unarmed response, it's violence interrupters, and it's community-based crime prevention strategies that, since I started doing this work in 1990, have been perfected and replicated around the country.
MacArthur Park. Now, MacArthur Park has always, you know, at one point we were out there, we were having fun, then it got extremely different. And now we're seeing with MacArthur Park that it feels like there's a community kind of going back to MacArthur Park.
That's right.
Explain what happened.
Yeah, all of those strategies have been applied in MacArthur Park, including law enforcement. So some of the people, there were vendors down Alvarado selling everything under the sun, most of it stolen, but also behind the stolen goods or the food, there was meth and fentanyl being sold by the vendors. Those vendors are gone now. What you do have, though, is that you do see people who are addicted. And until we get to the point where we can deal with that, it waxes and wanes. So you could drive by MacArthur Park today, it might be completely clear.
Right.
Tomorrow there might be addicts there because there's a new shipment that came in or people got paid. But the park is better. Now what we're getting ready to do now is fence the park off.
Right.
And close the park off.
Were you opposed to that at first?
No. I support that effort, absolutely. And the gates that are up there now that the vendors can't come back, we put those gates there. So working with the council office and applying these strategies that have been perfected over many years is what has reduced the problem. So Norm Langer, he's not going anywhere.
But you would see also on the news where it was like this catch and release. You would see these snatch and grabs. You're not seeing as much. I don't know if it was
exactly.
And you would see home invasions, and then there's this crew that hit these homes. Like, it seemed every time you turned the TV on, that ticker tape at the bottom of your news is like a horror movie.
Well, a few things. One thing also that's frustrating to me is that you watch the news and you see a crime happening. It doesn't have to be in LA at all.
Right. Yeah.
But it's in LA.
Right.
It could be in San Bernardino or San Diego or Corona. And the other thing that's different now is that you can watch the crimes take place.
Yeah.
We never saw them before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the nightly news, you watch the
news, it's on your phone.
Right.
And we're seeing things now that we've never seen.
Exactly. But we did have a smash and grab task force, so that reduced it. But crime cycles. And so there tends to be an uptick in the summer. So what we do in the summer is we have this program called Summer Night Lights that keeps the kids in the park until late at night. And that way we have been able to reduce, again, a lot of the gang violence. So there's a variety of strategies that we use in our Office of Community Safety. But the whole thing, that's a whole separate office that is dedicated to these strategies to prevent crime. Because we've learned over the years, you just can't lock everybody up. And catch and release is something that was a policy that was done. Some of the laws have changed on that, but you can't lock everybody up. There's not enough jail space.
How do you make the average Angelino feel safe?
Well, one is working with them with their specific neighborhood. So the home invasions that you saw, that some of that was organized with overseas.
Yeah, Chilean crew.
Chilean crews, And then, of course, you had some folks from South LA trying to compete with that and trying to duplicate that, but that was highly sophisticated. They would fly here and go immediately to a criminal headquarters, which was a car rental place. They were given luxury cars to blend in with the neighborhood and plant themselves. It was very sophisticated. And then
Did you see how they found Keanu Reeves' watch?
Oh no, I didn't.
In Chile, his house got broken into like 2 years ago or so. And a few months ago, they found the guy wearing the watch.
He was wearing the watch. Oh, God.
So it's definitely a big problem.
Well,
but
let me tell you, too, who buys it? So a lot of that stuff is sold online. It's like the copper wire theft. I mean, we don't have street lights because of copper wire theft. So, of course, we have a copper wire task force. The police are making arrests. But I want to know who's buying it. Because if you dry up the market, then you're not going to have the problem. But what we tend to do is we tend to do whack-a-mole. I like to look at root causes.
Now, I'm going to ask you this again, because I asked you this kind of at the beginning. Why do you want to be mayor of Los Angeles?
This is where I was born and raised. I love the city. I know of all of the potential that LA has. And I am going to work, as I have most of my life, worked on issues that were the hardest issues, the issues that nobody really wanted to spend their time on, with the people that nobody tended to care about. Because if we take care of that level, then everything gets better. The environment is safer. People are more attracted to stay here and open up businesses. But my job is not finished. That's the main thing. I'm not finished. If I was finished with my job, then it would all be fine. I'm not somebody that has run for office just to pursue one office after another. This is my last office. After this, I'll go back and doing what I was doing, you know,
breakdancing.
30 years ago.
30. I thought you were going back to breakdancing.
Working in the community.
I thought you were going back to breakdancing. Well, I thank you for your time, Mayor Karen
I thank you for yours.
And I'm going to tell you, for anyone that's watching this, you didn't ask for pre-questions.
No.
You didn't say, what are we talking about?
No.
You know, there was no level. You said, ask you anything.
Right. And I meant it.
Being a representative of Los Angeles and coming in here and speaking for Los Angeles, I thank you for your time.
Oh, you're very welcome.